Chapter 1. Do you hear what I hear? Said the night wind to the little lamb, do you hear what I hear? Cold steel blue shafts of light broke through the dappled pine needles to shine down on the gleaming hilt of a polished Roman sword. The foil stood upright in the earth and tied to the hilt, listlessly swaying in the gentle breeze blew a red ribbon. The year was what would later be reckoned as 292 Anno Domini, though that calendar was yet to exist. Anno Domini, Latin for Year of Our Lord, had no meaning for the Roman Empire during the terrible reign of the Emperor Diocletian. However, those whom he oppressed kept account. It was roughly 3 centuries since the birth of Christ. The sword stood in stiff frozen dirt near the Danube River, where the northernmost limit of the empire lay. Barbarians, as the arrogant Romans called them, were quite adept at holding their territory right along that pivotal river. A leather-gloved hand split through the cold air to clutch the hilt, drew the blade from the frosty earth, and swung it up into a clash with another blade. Nicholas, a 20-year-old soldier, fought rigorously against the stronger, more experienced legionnaire Lysander. Visible puffs of steam rose in the frigid air from their mouths, and their brows dripped with sweat. Nicholas thought the sweat might turn to beads of ice before they hit the dirt. However, his typically introverted thinking caused what happened next. In the midst of their brawl, Nicholas tripped over a small root protruding from the frosty soil. As Nicholas fell into the sward, the icy organic mat of grass, roots, and leaves, the hilt of his sword flew just out of his finger's reach, and Lysander's blade came sweeping down toward his throat. It didn't strike him, of course. They were friends. Slain, Lysander grunted and stepped back to gather his composure and wipe clean his sweaty brow. One ought to heed previous tutoring, Nicholas. Watch your feet. They are meant to befriend you rather than betray you. Nicholas stared up at the champion with eyes nearly revealing his heart's envy. At once he reprimanded himself. He knew better than to commit such a deadly sin as envy, so he labeled it admiration instead. This is Nicholas, born in the small town of Patara in the land of Lycia, once governed by Greece and now a melting pot of cultures during Roman reign. Nicholas grew up under his 2 wealthy parents. Nicholas's father was Epiphanius and his mother Nona. Both were devout Christians. During his early years, he lived a carefree life until an accident robbed him of his brothers, and the tyranny of the religiously intolerant empire stole his parents. It wasn't long afterward when the traumatized wealthy orphan found himself in the custody of his uncle, the Bishop of Patara, for whom he had been named after. Uncle Nicholas raised the lad to be a clergyman and structured his life under fastidiously pious guidelines expected of a priest in training. After years of learning scriptures, myriad languages, and serving those in need, he met a young girl who stole his heart, Nysa. She could be described as a fair maiden lost in a dark, cruel world. Nicholas only wanted for her to be protected and for he to be her protector. She was like a drug to him, intoxicating in a way that effectively dissolved any possibility of a vow of chastity. Somehow he remained chaste. However, he broke ties with his uncle and the church to start a new life. In addition to that motivation, something nagged at him from within to break free of Lycia and discover the larger world. His naive goal was to earn an income, return a conquering hero who would sweep Nysa off her feet and marry her to live happily until his final breath. So he abandoned all ties to his prospective destiny as a priest and blindly joined the very force that had killed his parents, the Roman army. He figured that to try fighting them would be an inevitable defeat, so he would forge for himself a new destiny. However, his adolescent rebellion left him in a quandary. He had no training as a fighter. After recruitment, he made his way into the office of quartermaster and was made responsible for ensuring that his brothers in arms were adequately equipped. It just so happened that the war had decimated his company so severely that in the upcoming battle his comrades would surely call upon him to take up his sword for the cause of expanding Roman rule. he would have to fight and help his company cross the Danube River. Unfortunately, he still did not possess the caliber of courage needed to be a legionnaire. Lysander reached out his hand and helped Nicholas to his feet. As Nicholas stood and straightened his gear, he said in jest, "Be proud, Lysander, for it wasn't a soldier you bested, but a simple quartermaster." Lysander stretched and stepped back. "Aye," he began to say as he stooped down to pick up Nicholas's sword. "Too many of our ranks have fallen. All will be required to finally expand the territory." He paused and looked at Nicholas's shining sword, taking note of the ribbon fixed to the hilt, and then parroted without emotion the legionnaire's dictum, "In the name of Rome, the northern barbarians must fall." Lysander tossed the sword back to Nicholas, who caught it in midair, and said, therefore, as he cracked his neck and took a stance, ready for another skirmish, "Let us have at it again." Taking Lysander by surprise, the two began to duel once again, and Lysander, the valiant veteran, held his ground with ease. Although tired and cold, Nicholas struggled to mask his weakness. Lysander did what he could to train and strengthen his friend, to ready him for the heat of the coming battle. This is Lysander, a fun-loving Greek from Myra, which was a bustling harbor city in southern Lycia. The fact that he and Nicholas both came from Lycia prompted the two polar opposites to become devoted friends. While only 3 years older than Nicholas, Lysander had been through too many ambitious battles to number. He was born to prosperous parents devoted to the grand old empire, who instilled in him the need for honor and the requirement to serve and fight for the glory of Rome. He believed it was the best way to bring honor to his name and to his family. So he had worked his body to become a muscular killing force, adept at many arts of modern warfare. He could have modeled for a chiseled statue of Greek physical perfection, and he knew it. He enjoyed the envy of the crowds, especially women, wherever he went. Fame and fortune were his rewards for his devotion to the glory of Rome. In short, he was everything Nicholas hoped to be. Despite all that, deep down, Lysander longed for something more, something meaningful out of life. Though the legion and his kin told him that he had achieved honor and continued to elevate his status, his heart whispered that his definition of honor was erroneous. People like Nicholas helped him catch glimpses of that missing element of his heart. Not only Nicholas, but also the exquisitely unique Deborah, a woman he had rescued from a thief in Myra. She had the ability not to fall for his seductive charms, unlike other women he had met, and it drove him mad. Getting to know her afterward, he discovered that she was one of those Christians, the outcast who always seemed posed at the brink of rebellion against the sovereignty. But did he judge her? No. Typically, he would look down his nose at such strangers. However, with Deborah, there was something he could never condemn, even if he wanted. So now he fought for her, to prove to her that Rome was a glorious society that, through force of war, would bring peace and prosperity and unity among all the nations under the great banner of Rome. He would valiantly fight for the glory of the nation, to change her mind, win her heart, and hopefully find the elusive secret meaning of the word honor. Lysander admirably fought Nicholas with the intention to harden him and increase his skills with the blade. Although Nicholas slowly improved, had he been an opponent on the battlefield, he was nothing more than the knave Lysander would simply dispatch in seconds while charging toward a greater foe more worthy of his efforts and skill. With needle-sharp focus on his goal, Lysander chose to demonstrate to Nicholas how pathetic his skills were and how badly he needed to shape up. He demonstrated this by dodging a strike, pinning his opponent's sword down with his own, stepping on Nicholas's toes and elbowing him across the cheek. Needless to say, Nicholas was stunned, faltered, and stumbled back to almost fall again. A blow like that in the chilling air felt like a knife stroke in itself. The two sighed and heaved, Nicholas ashamed and trying not to show his exhaustion. To his further dismay, Nicholas discovered soldiers had gathered around to watch Lysander, the champion, effortlessly dispatch another challenger. Miles and Cordus, two mounted soldiers, stopped their horses to watch the spectacle and couldn't help but comment. "Waste not your time, Lysander," said Miles. "You'd have better fortune teaching an ass to wield a blade than our quartermaster." "You're next then," Lysander replied with a crooked smile. Seizing the opportunity for posterity, the plucky Nicholas added, "Quite right. When I finish with Lysander, I'll gladly best you as well, Miles." "Best me? Not in this lifetime. I'd less easily slain a maimed doe," Miles responded with a chuckle. "Prove it. Care to meet your blade to mine?" Nicholas asked seriously. Though it publicly gained him some credit, he hoped within his masculine facade would not make Miles another opponent. Deep within, he felt this was too trivial and he shouldn't even care about it. However, he gave little mind to that innermost voice when so many strong males watched him. "No, thank you. My skills are set. I'll save my strength for worthy opponents," Miles guffawed. Cordus finally chimed in with a chortle. "He means to say he's too cold to fight." This broke the tension, as he intended, and soon all the shivering men were laughing. Miles, enjoying the amusement, still felt the need to punch him in the arm. "Oh, you're just as frozen as the lot of us," he said. "Assuredly, my parts are as shriveled as your grandmother's bosom." They all laughed again, and the tension faded like a vapor in a strong wind. Soldiers need camaraderie. When enemies could be lurking nearby and the great precipice of the next battle dwells on the ever-nearing horizon, they need to joke, laugh, and tease to maintain that spark of their humanity. It was a delight to Nicholas, who had always felt like an observer all his life, to watch as people enjoyed the precious gift of life. Of course, it was all the better when he was actually included in the jocularity. However, the tension returned like the next wave crashing against a shore as their commander, Flavius Constantine, galloped toward them shouting, "Hear ye, laughing children," and pulled his horse to a trot circling them. If Lysander was the epitome of the Greek ideal of male perfection, Flavius was a model that artists could use when sculpting the gods. His firm jaw and dark piercing eyes were the countenance of royalty and leadership. While Nicholas admired his friend Lysander, Flavius stood on a pedestal even higher, almost but not quite at the level worthy of worship. Though a man who understood propriety, Nicholas also grew up on stories of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who refused to bow before Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and who would never allow his admiration to reach the level of worship. His devotion to Flavius bordered on such a stature. "Quartermaster," Flavius addressed Nicholas, "here are the men. Everyone, post haste. Scouts have seen the barbarians not far off." "Aye, sir," Nicholas replied, standing tall and proud. "Men, we soon ride to war and the glorious expansion of Rome," Flavius shouted as he rode off, quickly followed by his officers and elite guards. Miles and Cordus promptly departed, but Lysander remained gazing at Nicholas, watching the gravity of Flavius's words sink deep into his friend's awareness. And now that his very life was at stake, Nicholas considered himself a fool for joining the Legion and seeing only the end he desired without truly weighing the cost of the means to achieve it. The end of returning home to Nyssa was a triumphant hero, handsomely rewarded for his service to the Empire, was all he saw when sailing out of Myra only a few months ago. Now he had witnessed a number of battles in which men whom he knew and had shared solidarity went into battle and never returned. He had seen bloodshed and savage bestial conflicts all over the ownership of a hunk of ground. He didn't think much of politics and even less of warfare, yet somehow, like swimming too far from shore and suddenly becoming aware that a current has gripped you and carried you away from the coast, he found himself putting his life at risk in the name of a political purpose in which he did not believe in. "'Tis an ill fate to choose to serve the Empire and be called upon to slay men," Nicholas sighed. His words, spoken without forethought, revealed his innermost conundrum. He was not a coward. It wasn't his own death he feared, but the killing of others. With the death of everyone dear to him, he had learned that life was such a priceless gift. As an ornament made of thin glass, so easily shattered, life was so very precious. His heart sank lower as he truly understood for the first time that the death he feared was the death of fellow human beings. "Be of good cheer, Nicholas," Lysander said as he patted his friend's shoulder and began to walk him toward the storage tents. "By the setting of the sun, all that matters is how you have fought for right." This confidence builder might have cheered Nicholas, but in his heart of hearts, where the religious child still lived, Lysander was a heathen. What was right to him may not be truly appropriate. Yes, he had felt the strength and courage that came from fighting for the right. When he was still young, he saw an adult man wickedly take a loaf of bread from a little girl. He begged his father all day for a loaf of bread, and finally, when he succumbed to the nagging, Nicholas ran back into the square and searched until he found the little girl. She clutched her mother's skirt as she wove a tapestry, pale, dirty-faced, and clearly malnourished. Young Nicholas gave the bread to the little girl and undid the wicked man's heinous act. He felt that he triumphed over evil. He fought for what was good. Later, when he saw the same little girl steal a loaf from the same wicked man, he took it away from her violently and returned it to its owner. Little Nicholas learned that the man probably took it from her the first time because she stole it from him in the first place. So what was right? What was the right he would fight for that would fill him with courage and strength?